Greetings, friends. In this video I'm going to look at the question of dogma, the word dogmatic. Why does this have a negative connotation? I'm going to look at a paper by the National Library of Medicine called Dogmatism and Happiness in the second part of this video. But the word means, or did mean, adhering to a tenet or principle. It just meant being principled, having a guiding foundation, the way really everyone does. The way any worldview is founded on some principles. These are dogmas. So there's plenty of dogmas today, and there's no way that people who are criticizing dogma do not have some dogmas of their own, principles of their own. It's just got that religious connotation. Oh, I'm not religious, but well, you have dogmas. For example, a dogma today is that racism is something which exists and it is a bad thing. This is a dogma. Or freedom is a good thing. That's a dogma. Humans are animals. This is another dogma of today. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true, but it's a foundation through which people see the world. And I'm not getting into critiquing it here. It would be silly to say that they shouldn't have any principles. It would be silly to say that they shouldn't have any story about where we came from, about who we really are. That would be silly because we have these principles. You have to have something to found a worldview on. But today they want to dissolve your ability to form worldviews at least to the extent that it can be reshaped at a moment's notice, depending on what they tell you, what they want you to believe. So that's why they are really attacking this idea of dogma, and why dogmatic has become a signal for low status, a derogatory word, a connotation, like far right, redneck, stupid person, basically. Even though I think really dogmatic is representing culture, hierarchy, tradition, the church. It represents these. It doesn't represent uneducated peasants. It's an educated word. So it shouldn't really have that low status signal, but that's what they've painted it as today. Like today, someone might say, oh, well, my church or my organization or whatever it is, well, we're not dogmatic. We are open-minded. We don't judge. And no one judges. Only God can judge, but we don't form strong opinions about you. We're not going to tell you that you're wrong. We're not arrogant to assert that you could be wrong, or that you are wrong, or that there is some truth which holds you to account as it holds myself to account and all of us. Well, that would be arrogant. That's even violent. That's rude, that's disrespectful. How dare you have a guiding principle that you would form opinions of other people by? That's so arrogant. Well, first of all, it's not possible to escape the dogma. You're going to have some guiding principles no matter what. But secondly, if that really is your attitude, to have no guiding principles that you adhere to, and that you form opinions of society according to this standard or standards, then that would be to forsake truth itself and to take a very cynical or apathetic attitude towards truth. It would be to say, well, truth doesn't really matter to me because we're all just living here, whatever. And again, that itself would be a truth, but it is a running away from truth. It is a laziness in the approach to truth. That's the most I could say. But you could never make a statement, like you could never say, we're non-dogmatic. You've now made a dogmatic statement. You see how silly this is? This is absolutely stupid. Some examples of Christian dogma would be that Jesus is God, and He died for our sins, and that God is the Trinity, and such things as this. Not all the different churches are going to agree on other points down the line, but there have to be enough things in common to form a creed, to say this is how we can say if you are in the in-group or in the out-group, or not part of our group. For the Orthodox tradition, I don't need to recite the creed, but I know the creed by heart. I can recite it. It's not very long, but it's maybe at least a dozen sentences or more. And it outlines the Heavenly Father, and mostly focuses on Christ, who he was and what he did, and then it mentions the Holy Spirit, it mentions the church, and what I, as a believer, I believe in, and what I hope for. So some basic guiding principles that have to be there for any tradition. And if the tradition is going to persist over centuries, it would have to have necessarily things which are defended as being true. Now you can say, well, that's arrogant or that's closed-minded, but in fact, if these things can hold up in debates and if these things are questioned, who are you to criticize them for being arrogant? It's not like the church fathers ever shrank from a chance to discuss, to debate these matters. These things have been discussed for hundreds of years. They're always open to be further evaluated by every generation. Why then do people keep choosing the tradition when these things are open to discussion? So no, it's not at all that the dogmatic person is closed-minded. He's just more honest in calling himself dogmatic, in accepting dogma. It's just a more honest way to look at things, and then to choose the dogma which are coherent. That's getting into another discussion. That's beyond the scope of this video. What are the good principles? What are the coherent principles? Okay, we can get there, but let's agree that we have these guiding principles and not be stupid postmodernists. So I am going to read this paper and criticize it, but I have this one quote that I will read here, and their paper was Dogmatism and Happiness by Mariam Malkir, Mohammed Khan Ahmadi, and Dariush Farhoud. And they were studying in people in Tehran, Iran, in 2014 or 15, I believe. And they say in their paper that, quote, dogmatism is defined as avoidance from accepting others' beliefs, ideas, and behaviors. Dogmatic individuals have many problems in understanding new ideas. So you see, this is just a total tangent from the basic concept of having dogma. Why would someone who has a foundation to their worldview which they're conscious of, which they're able to articulate and defend, why would that mean that you cannot understand new ideas? Part of recognizing dogma means you have to recognize other ideas, which are not in the dogma. So it lends itself to the intellect to think and understand the concept of dogma. And you know, I mean, I said everyone is dogmatic, but to consciously look at these principles so that you can explore them and see if they hold up to reason. They say also that avoidance from accepting others' beliefs, ideas, and behaviors. Why would that be a bad thing? Why would it be bad if someone is doing something which is disgusting, which is immoral, which is obscene, and you would resist this? You would not condone this? You would not have an accepting attitude? You would not tolerate this, in other words. This is just assumed to be a bad thing. So when I did a Google search for why dogmatism is a bad word, this paper came up right away. And this is from the National Library of Medicine. The title is Dogmatism and Happiness. Background: happiness is a drive and constructive force of life. A person feels under different affective factors. What? What does that mean? Religious dogmatism that has an influence on the entire world is one of the depreciatory factors of happiness or well-being. The current study decided to analyze the relation between dogmatism and well-being, and according to a model, answer the following question: how does religious dogmatism decrease well-being? Did I miss something? What did they define well-being as? What a vague word as that. These are social scientists from what I can see. I'm assuming they're sociologists. They do a lot more studies in sociology, so they make it seem like a science. And it can be scientific, but it can easily be just total vague nonsense with these terms which are not even defined, because how could you define well-being? I mean, that's a joke to think you could define that. Like, social scientists in the 20th century actually thought they had it all figured out. I'm not going to read everything here, but they did the study in Tehran, Iran in 2015, 180 subjects. I'm assuming they're dealing with devout Muslims, Shia Muslims in that country. Maybe it's a different situation, sort of, but there are a lot of things in common, even if it was a Christian country or some other country. So they're saying that if you're dogmatic, then you're going to be unhappy, which is not really the point of my video. I was trying to make that clear in the beginning, but this is a related issue. This is one way we're going to see in which the left or the establishment goes up against the religious mentality. That's what we're looking at. That's why we're interested in this paper here. And they say, as their conclusion, dogmatism is one of the factors that have a negative effect on well-being. Religious dogmatism is the most dangerous factor against well-being. Oh, so see the clinical approach here? If you're religious, you're clinically unwell, and you're a threat to yourself and to others. They continue, they say, dogmatic individuals have an inflexible cognitive system that emerges as a stable personality trait and decreases their adjustment with environment. So the English here is terrible. This sentence also just is unclear what they're talking about. Your cognitive system is inflexible. So they're just trying to say you're stubborn, in other words. It emerges as a stable personality trait. Okay. Doesn't that sound like a good thing, a stable personality trait? But it decreases their adjustment with environment? Like what? Affective well-being and cognitive well-being are affected by individual adjustment. Don't even know what they're trying to say there. Therefore, in dogmatic individuals with low adjustment, the decrease of affective well-being and cognitive well-being is inevitable. The process will result in decrease of happiness and increase of aggression. So not only are you're going to be unhappy and you're going to be violent if you're dogmatic. Dogma equals being unhappy, being clinically unwell, and being aggressive towards others, being a threat that needs to be dealt with. We need to take you aside. We need to remove you. We need to re-educate you. Not to be dogmatic, not to believe in principles of truth firmly. You must submit, you must lay down your stubbornness. These social scientists, so-called scientists, they are sick. They are insidious. Look at the evil they're participating in through the institutions in writing this crap. Achieving happiness was the earliest wishes of human being. Wow, they can't even get basic grammar. Like, do you have a single person to read over your paper who speaks English as a first language? But this is just worthwhile to show that whatever they're talking about happiness doesn't make sense either. Happiness points out to short-term effects and feelings and long-term well-being. You already referenced well-being without defining that. So what are you talking about here? In one point, do you mean at one point? Happiness, regarded as subjective well-being in this article, is called as a heritable mood. Subjective well-being. Like, that's not helpful to us in a scientific sense to discuss happiness, because really I don't think happiness exactly can be defined scientifically. You can get at it, you can do scientific studies around it, but that's not exactly a scientific concept. I don't think that should be a surprise. So basically, I'm not going to read everything in their section on happiness because It's not any better than that. It's just more nonsense. But then they get to this paragraph here where they get back to dogmatism. They say, a personality trait considered in relation with subjective well-being is the dogmatism. Dogmatism is a cognitive construction altered to a personality trait. What? If that's what a dogmatism is, then what is anything else psychologically or socially that humans do or are? Like what would that be? Like the sexual drive, is that also a cognitive construction, or like cooperating in groups, having languages, is that not also a cognitive construction? Why would, so they're making this blanket statement and I don't even see for what reason. They say that dogmatism is defined as avoidance from accepting others' beliefs, ideas, and behaviors. Dogmatic individuals have many problems in understanding new ideas. They cannot accept reasonable ideas instead of their incorrect ideas. They do not cooperate with others with different ideas. They prefer to work with people like themselves. This group committed to their ideas without considering other possibilities. Are the authors of this paper that stupid or like lacking that self-awareness? I mean, in their place in whatever institution the National Library of Medicine is, or in their role as academics putting this paper together, are they not also working with people like themselves? That's the whole idea here. Can they not see that? Leftists just totally project. They project things that it's like they have so many blind spots that honestly many of them may not see it. They may not be really that self-aware. You cannot accept other ideas, but then they slip in that they are correct ideas, reasonable ideas. You see, they just smuggle in that they own the meanings of reasonable. They own, without question, the status of correct. See how they just smuggle that in, those little snakes. They're just saying basically these dogmatic people, it's just code for religious people basically. Usually they go after Christians, but in this case it might be Muslims, which, the left, they do promote Muslims, and then they also have to counterbalance that a bit for obvious reasons. So it is a bit complicated by the fact that we're going after a Muslim country here, but generally it's directed against Christians. And that's all it is. It's just actually they have their own dogma, which is secularism, leftism, diversity, equity, inclusion, civil rights values, progressivism. Those are their dogmas. And people who don't accept those dogmas, well, they're actually the dogmatic ones, as they call us. And we don't accept their ideas, and some of their things we may find reprehensible, even disgusting. And they're saying, well, because you won't accept new behaviors, there's something unreasonable about you. Because we have the correct ideas, we have the reasonable ideas, and you have to accept our reasonable ideas. And if you don't, you're unwell, and your stubbornness is aggressive, and actually you are aggressive, and you are a danger. And they continue that dogma is a Greek word that means individual belief or idea. Individuals with open mind in acceptance of new ideas are without dogmatism, and individuals with closed mind present as dogmatism. And then they're talking about it being a cognitive network. I mean, whatever that even means in this case. Let's just look at that, like individuals with an open mind in acceptance of new ideas. Oh, you just have an open mind in accepting new ideas. How about thinking about new ideas and then deciding whether to accept them? I mean, they were talking about being reasonable, right? They were just talking about being reasonable in the previous paragraph. Well, how about being open-minded and then reasoning about new ideas? And then deciding Do they cohere with your principles, with your guiding principles, your dogma, in other words? Do they cohere with that? Do they seem to be better? Could you have another coherent worldview with these, but then that would be new dogma? Or do you keep your old dogma? Or you refine your understanding of your previous dogma? But either way, you have your principles. How about that? How about thinking through things, reasoning, and trying to attain some degree of wisdom? And then we can skip over most of this. I mean, they're just saying, in some theory, dogmatism has three definitions: a closed cognitive system from beliefs and unbelief toward the reality. That doesn't make any sense. Organizing a fundamental belief about absolute power. So they have some animus against the idea of absolute truth, because that implies absolute power. And then they say also dogmatism defined as providing a framework of dogmatism towards everything. Oh, that's helpful. A definition of dogmatism involving chiefly the word dogmatism in the definition of dogmatism. How smart social scientists are. Keep in mind, Iran is a liberal country, even though it's Islamic. This really has nothing at all philosophically to do with the question of dogma anymore. They're just sort of using that word as a catchphrase, and they're just sort of painting this picture of how religious people are, maladapted to life and violent. And like the number of people in the study, I think they said, is 180. That's 180 people in one country of the world in a religion which, to be honest, is kind of a messed up religion that is a violent religion. We can say that. Dogmatism has various subtypes: religious, racism, ethnic dogmatism. Oh, so you see how they're using the term? Like what? It's just... It just means like based now. It just means like right-wing, conservative, religious person, healthy, happy person, at least healthy, based person. And they say that you're the unhappy one. How exactly? They didn't explain how avoiding truth as a standard is going to make you more happy. Maybe lies can make you more happy short term. So that's this ridiculous paper. Hasta luego, amigos.